Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
At this time, before I go into the agenda, I'm going to say the morning prayer. Watch over frontline workers, especially upset trouble. They're getting their checks that they. I ask you just continue to bless the leadership, families, especially when we take our time away from our families to be for our community members. Gosh, those that are carrying those Bibles and also to remind our open up away from their lives, gosh no. So I ask you just continue to gosh no. That.
These matters are a little bit urgent as housing's in need of both of these action items. Action item number 1 is a roundtable discussion that we had with our tribal council. It's the K-Split property in town. Housing currently manages it. Excuse me. But in order to do renovations, they need title, they need ownership. The funding agency that they're using the funds from is requiring that, is making that a requirement in order to do capital improvements on that building. We've had that building since 2003. We paid $80,000 roughly for it. The tribe has never actually used it themselves. It was all entities of the tribe. DNBC was in there, DNI was in there, now housing's in there. That building is in rough shape. It does need a new roof, and there's a lot of structural integrity issues that Eric's really worried about. He has the funding, he has the manpower to renovate. He just needs ownership transfer. That's why there's a warranty deed attached here. If I get that approved, I can get the chairman to sign it. We'll record that in county. Action item number 2 was previously approved use permit in 2019. It was for dirt work up at Long Hollow, phase 2. Talking with Richard and Eric, they're in need of more dirt. That use permit was only for a year. This one will also be for a year. As soon as this is approved, they can get the dirt moved. It's basically a borrow pit, but they're not digging too much of a hole. They're just stripping the topsoil. It's idle grassland. It's up there by the north end of our Long Hollow housing. The land's pretty much been idle for the last 10 years. So if this gets approved, they can get the dirt work completed on Long Hollow phase 2. Action item number 3 are all the fee to trust resolutions. Simon Land, Solomon parcel, Schultz, and Grable parcel. Legal descriptions are there. I did send it to Greg Paulson. He reviewed it. This template of the resolution is what he created previously with the past legal team. It's a pretty standard template. We just update the legal description, land information. And that's it in a nutshell. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments for his number 1 K-Split property transfer to the System County update? To the System Housing Authority. I know he had a roundtable with leadership, so any discussions or comments before I ask for a motion? If not, is there a motion to approve for number 1?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Katiza Haska.
Second.
Second by Bade Hakia. Question, Buffalo.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, Council. And is that motion number 2 for the use permit housing Tribal Road SWO project? Any questions or comments coming from leadership?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Katiza Haska. Second, Buffalo Lake. Question, Lake Travis.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
For number 3, I'm going to ask our Verlin, would you rather all this together or you want them separate?
They got to be separate.
Exhibit A, the assignment parcel for 74 acres. Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion.
So moved by Tokenoa,
Second.
second by Lake Travis. Question, Buffalo Lake.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, Council. And is that Solomon parcel? Any questions or comments?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Lake Travis. Second, Buffalo Lake.
What?
Question, Tokenoa.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, Council. And is that Schultz parcel? Exhibit C. No questions or comments, is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Lake Travis. Second, Buffalo Lake.
Question.
Question, Tokenoa.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Moving on to Exhibit D for Grable parcel. Any questions or comments coming from leadership? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Katiza Haska.
Second.
Tokenoa, second. Question, Buffalo Lake.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Anything else, Gary, for leadership?
No, that's all I have, Tribal Leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Motion approves the realty office report.
So moved.
So moved by Katiza Haska.
Second.
Second by Lake Travis. Question by Buffalo Lake.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, Council. Is that? Is planning ready?
Yes, peeking in the door.
Good morning, Matt. Then whenever you're ready, you just make sure your mic is on. The green light will turn on just to your right.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of council. In front of you, you'll find a memo with the planning department's requests for action on 2 action items related to the tribe's agency village water project. As you recall, April 30th of this year, we had the release of the Helms Water Study with the preliminary engineering report. In order to proceed with an application for federal assistance, we need to the council's approval of number 1, a notice of intent to file an application with USDA, and number 2, the delegation to Ella Robertson, community planner, the designated point of contact for the online web-based list to the rural development application.
Going on motion number one, any questions or comments from leadership?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Rick Charles, second by Buffalo Lake. Question by Pokemon.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, Councilman Zach. Motion number two, as presented by the Director of Planning. Any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Lake Travis,
Second.
second by Tokunawa. Question by Kakiza Hasta.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, Matthew. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you, Council.
There's a question back there. Can you make sure Alex, can you turn her mic on, please? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marie Randall. I'm from the Heat District. And I just have some questions regarding all this money that the tribe received. And my question is, why did that money not go to Dakota Bank? What is the reason that it wasn't sent to Dakota Bank, but put in a personal friend's account at Great Western? That's my information was that. That's why that was put over in that bank.
For the history part, it was no personal friend. Dakota Western Bank made arrangements or tried to make contact with the tribe, I think, in Dave Fluke's time, maybe before that. And he's been trying to meet with council and get council to meet with Dakota Western to start that relationship and that business together. And from what I understand, it's better if you go with other banks rather than just one bank. If I'm not mistaken, Matthew or any of the leadership could respond to.
Yes, that's a great question. Great Western Bank is a bank. It's a South Dakota bank regulated by the laws of South Dakota, similar to Dakota Bank. And the decision to put these funds at that bank was due to the emergency of the pandemic, and economic diversification also applies to diversifying funds across different banks.
So we won't be having
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the reason why this council decided to use Great Western Bank was for economic diversification, as well as we are looking at refinancing a large portion of our debt at a much lower interest rate. Great Western Bank has been approaching the tribe, like the chairman said. Having an account set up it started in creating that relationship. That by doing, and I'm not going to speak too much about it because we haven't done that yet, but by refinancing portions of the tribe's debt, we are going to be saving millions of dollars to this tribe. There was no friendship. There was no personal relationship. I think probably that those statements, I've heard them too in the community, that they're being directed at our planning director. Matthew, very few people know this about Matthew. He's a young man, but is very accomplished. He's completed law school, and He's very humble, so this is not his thing. He kind of gets embarrassed when I do this to him because I praise him every opportunity. He's completed law school at one of the top universities in this country for law, as well as having education and work experience in finance. He's got one of the highest licenses that you can have in that field. Those are very hard to come by. And if you talk to people in that field, he's very well respected and admired. So anything that Matthew does in regards to finance, he is bound by ethical guidelines with that licensure. He's worked for some of the tribes who have large amounts of assets. And, when it comes to those things, we really trust him. I have tried to dispel those rumors when I've heard them because they're inaccurate. Matthew has, with the ARPA funds, he's completed all of the applications and the reporting for the ARPA funds that the tribe is getting. If it wasn't for Matthew and his hard work, we would not have these ARPA funds because he stepped in, it was assigned. It was assigned and dropped. And Matthew came in. The deadline was extended, but we didn't know that at that time. Matthew came in the day before the deadline and completed that application. Had he not done that, we wouldn't be distributing funds. We would be sitting on a big pot of nothing. So Matthew, as our planning director, has been and continues to be an asset because another one of those things that Matthew included was the application for our jail. He's been working very diligently on that. So I don't want to take up any more time praising Matthew because I do that a lot. But I think that it's important for us to recognize the accomplishments and what Matthew brings to the table because he brings a lot. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, also, my other question is, do we not have a vice chairman? Doesn't she oversee all of our funds that come into this tribe? Don't they go directly to that program under her department rather than putting it under another program that it shouldn't be under? That was my understanding from years back, and I've been here a long time, that our tribal secretary, at that time, we used to have a treasurer, and they handled all the funding, not a personal program, separate program. That's all that I would like to say is why did you all do that? Take that away from all of us. That's not just taking it away from you guys, but you took that away from all of us for our Constitution and honoring our Constitution and everything. And that should have been where it belonged.
Before I turn it over to Dallas, Louis and Curtis was here. So before I came in, council already made a decision with the chairman at the time that he was going to be over the COVID funds, and he signed it over to planning at the time. And at the time, because of time constraints, he couldn't do the job, so it was turned over to the vice chairman's office at the time. So that's where it started, and that's where we are right now. In a nutshell, am I wrong in that? Okay, please.
But you all make changes. You go every month, you make a motion sometime, then you come back the next month, make a change to that. You could have made that change. You're all our leadership, you guys could have did that. And putting it where it belongs.
Dallas, floor is yours.
So addressing the constitutional duties of council, Marie, you know this. Who is responsible for these monies at the end of the day? Who has to make the motions to create these bank accounts? It's in the Constitution, so by doing so, It was a collaborative effort with council in doing these accounts. So by suggesting that we were doing something unconstitutional, I feel is just not necessary because it's in the book. Council is responsible for those funds, and ultimately it's up to us to decide, when do we make that new account? And that was the decision we went through with Great Western Bank, put that in there to try. Thank you.
Anything else from leadership?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the planning department report. Second by Kokonawa. Question about Foley.
Who was the second?
Emerson.
I did not second.
I thought it was
I was wondering.
I thought I heard Gonzalez make a sweep over here.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson, Tribal Vice Chairwoman, Tribal Secretary,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Clifford's ready to take the mic. I'm going to turn it over to the Department of Transportation, and right after that, we've got SWO office. Richard. You got to turn your mic on. It will light up too for you, Cliff.
Okay, I emailed out my report and all the attachments on, I think Friday or Monday, but I did hand out a cover sheet for the action items to move forward with for council approval today. We'll start right at the top there. The transit program, SWO DOT, is in the process of submitting for the annual transit support grant, 5311 federal funding. This grant will support the program going into 2022. If there's no questions, motion number one would be to approve the supporting SWO Tribal Council resolution and match assurance letter for the FTA program support grant to be submitted on August 25th, 2021, and SWO Tribal Chairman signature authority on all supporting documents.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Kokonawa for motion number one. Second by Buffalo. Question by Bucky Zahasa.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, Council and Executives. Back to Cliff.
Number two, the Orange Township Bridge Replacement Project. The SWO DOT had submitted a grant to the TTP Bridge Program for the replacement of this bridge. We advertised through the track SHOTA and the track's procurement office. Contractor to complete the project with Lake Builders Inc. will complete the construction with KLJ to do the construction engineering and material testing for the project. So, if there are no questions,
Any questions or comments for motion number two, leadership?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Madam Vice Chair. Second, Buffalo Lake. Question, Kokonawa.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson, Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
There was one other thing I kind of wanted to talk about, maybe a couple of things here, but the housing patching project, we had approved the proposal for this project. We've gone over that proposal amount, but the housing project, the housing streets are getting fixed. So once we get a final amount, I'll come in front of council and get that approved. But we're addressing these housing streets that haven't been fixed or maintained in quite some time. So we're asphalting almost all of them and overlaying what we can. So that being said, I also got an issue with
Just a second, quick, before you move on to your other issue, Madam Secretary wanted to add a comment.
Hi, does that housing project, patching project include Peter Town?
Yes, we did Beaver in town. We overlaid that whole hook that they have there. That is a federal highway. We put a 2-inch mat down on that. Takes a little time. We have to elevate the manholes and everything. You know, it's quite a process. First we gotta go find them. Who knows where they're at? And then we raise them up. And then, yeah, so it's got new asphalt on it.
That's good, thank you, that was bad.
Yes. We're also doing enemy swim housing, assistant housing. Long Hollow was really bad. Wabe housing, there's a couple of streets there that are gravel. We'll put a mat of asphalt down on those. So I think Summit's got a street or two that we'll address.
Got a question over here, got a copy. He's a hustler.
So I know Long Hollow was number 2 on the list, so how far are they to getting their old, on the north side of their housing road fixed? Or is that in the works already?
It's done.
It's done?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I know the other issue being is I know we have talked about the equipment purchase for the travel roads program and the deficiencies there. I'm having some issues with the supplier. He needs some sort of commitment to be able to keep these under our procurement that we went through and the pricing. So I'm wondering if Tribal Council would like to move on that or.
Mr. Chairman?
Dallas, what was yours?
Well, I feel like this is a very viable option for the tribe, and we've already dedicated monies to other entities of the tribe. So I don't feel like how this would be any different. So I'll make the motion to approve the equipment purchases as presented by Cliff. Utilizing the upper funds as funding source.
Thank you, Dallas. Motion moved by Dallas. Emily Swim. Asking for a second.
Second.
Second by Olaity. I'm going to turn the floor over to Madam Vice Chair as you have the comment.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with his request, but it's more geared towards us as council. And I think that we need to put together a project process. I started working on that. I do have something outlined for us, and I'd like to get with us as council and a roundtable introduction and get that passed. So that way all these programs that are coming through, we're going to be identifying the project manager. There's going to be a description of the project. We got to be able to justify making sure that it's within ARPA regulations, so those type of things. So let's just keep that in mind, and that we're right now going through and we're checking on all the motions for the projects that we have already approved, and I want them to be transferred into this process. And so my goal here, okay, so like planning's going to process payment, but we need to get them into the system, right? So his project's going to have to get into the system. I'm going to use you for an example.
Sure.
So that means that my staff is going to need to create we're going to need a budget for it. That budget's going to move my finance team to get you a fund account number, and then entered into workplace, and then it can be processed. So there's still, significant steps that need to be made because this is all going to be new expenses to our system. And so we do need to establish our process, and I'd like to get with council as soon as I can. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
A question.
Question by Madam Vice Chair. Also, too, to remind the leadership and also to our guests that are going to be presenting, we only got to allow 3 mics. So when you're done speaking, make sure you turn off your mic. Junior.
Mr. Chairman, or Cliff, do you have a list of the equipment and the amounts?
I do.
Okay. Are you ready for the vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson, Dion Crawford.
Could you read the motion back to me, please?
It's going to be approved, the equipment purchases, and then whatever that list is, I don't have it.
What was the amount?
$727,750.
What was the funding source?
ARPA.
$727,755. It's for the new plow trucks, the snow plow trucks and sanders to be applied to the trucks with the wing plows, and it's for the new loader with the Heineke 6-way blade for snow removal, you know, and clearing tribal members and elders' driveways in the winter time, and all in gravel driveways.
Because that can be seen as a litigation. Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Tribal Chairwoman,
I'm going to say no only because we haven't run this through review process.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Anything else, Cliff?
That's it.
Motion to approve the transportation report?
I'll motion to
So moved by Tokunuma.
Second.
Second by Madam Vice Chair. Question by Kakiza Haska. Before I call for a vote, I got a question back there.
I just
Go ahead,
have a
Diane.
question as a district member. Do you know how long it's gonna take to finish the Cooley Road, or where are you at on that?
They're beginning the asphalt process today. So that's probably about a week and a half or 2 worth of asphalt that they'll be hauling. So we're hoping probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks to be completed. They've got some, once the asphalt is completed, they've got rumble strips to carve in, they've got paint, signage, and ditch work completed. So, but once the asphalt is done, you know, then the speedway is open.
Okay. Thank you.
We had concerns too coming through, so Chris took us, myself and a couple other council members on a ride along through you guys' community and to better understand why it's taking so long. And I didn't know a lot of that goes into making a road, so it takes a lot.
There's 3 different levels of the base to that road, and each one of those levels have to pass a compaction test and you know, other tests, that material testing that goes on here, the elevation testing that goes on there. They're pretty entailed, and you know, it's a new construction program for the tribe, and these guys are learning every day. You know, they're learning a lot there, so it's a lot to building these federal roads. It's not just throwing down a bunch of gravel and leveling it off. It's quite a bit to it. So.
I just have one thing.
Madam Secretary.
Could those truck drivers slow down a little bit on that 1200? Because they come really fast, and
Yes.
there's kids that live along there. And
Yeah, I pulled them off of that road.
Oh, you did?
They for one day, they started using that road, and I got numerous calls on the dust, and so I pulled them off of that road and had them go down to Heber Crossing, Roberts County 5, and then come back up 7. So,
well, thank you.
yep.
Call for a vote, please.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Good.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, Cliff.
I will make one more comment to Madam Vice Chair. Any assistance you need from me to help this process along, you got my email, you got my phone number. I'm available, and I'll do whatever it takes to get this whole process and get these guys this new equipment.
And so, my budget office is probably gonna be reaching out to you like they will with the
Sure.
others that have approved.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Trevor Council.
Take care of yourself out there. And I mean, sure this. Whenever you guys are ready to, so make sure your light is on, your mic is on. We have a listening audience on our local radio station. And the weather is.
Chilly today and hot tamale.
Good morning, council and exec. So I have provided our written report for your review, and everything's pretty much in there. A couple of things that I wanted to highlight. I do have one action item, but the one thing that I wanted to highlight is this month is the 30th annual repatriation memorial. And the kickbox and Station Daily are sponsoring the memorial event. As far as we're going to be doing a run, we'll be running the 26 miles again this year for the 30th memorial from the east side of Rones Valley to the Repatriation Cemetery. Upon arrival up there, there will be prayers, a short program, and a memorial feast. The Luke family has generously committed to doing their memorial dinner there in honor of former Chairman Barry Luke. And so I want to make sure that the invitation is extended to everybody, because I think that we're really grateful for that, because that really that's a lot of work. That's a big job to do a memorial dinner, and we always do it at Station Daily. So we're grateful for that help. So just so that you know, executives will be coming to you to ask for a motion for any employees that may want to, not a motion, but a memo to give people administrative leave if they want to participate in that event. And that's on a Wednesday, so just so you know, it's going to be happening on the 25th, and we really would appreciate anyone's support and participation. If you're a runner, a walker, there will be walkers that will be starting at I believe at Mapner's Farm up there, if anyone knows where that is, near the repatriation grounds. I think that's about a good 4-mile walk, and the runners will rendezvous with them and at some point there. So that's what's going on. My report is in there, everything that we really needed to discuss. And if you have any questions, you can take a look at that. Yes.
I just want to let leadership know the 25th is the gaming day. If we want to switch gaming day, if we want to participate in this event. So this heads up on council. If you want to move gaming day to 24th or 26th. Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. This is probably, you know how I feel about keeping meeting days consistent, but this is one of the times when I personally would really appreciate that. I was 12 years old and I went with my grandma to DC, a great big bus, and Marie was there for the repatriation. So it's something that's very close to my heart, so I would really like to. Of course, my job is here to represent the people who travel. The chat, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, thank you, Dion. I appreciate that. Also, in your packets I have for your review, we need to do, we got 3 quotes there. We're trying to get some new computers in our office, and the amount, as you can see, we wanted to go with the first one. We need we need some computers that have a little bit larger capacity and some of the stuff for the maps. We deal with a lot of mapping and programs. So we wanted to update our computers right now. We're just really having a hard time with them. And you'll see that quote there for the amount. That's why it needed to come before you today. And we wanted to go with the Clutch, the quote from Clutch, the business. I don't know if it's Industries or what it is, Clutch. Anyway, those are there for your review. And I would appreciate it.
Any questions or comments come from leadership? I'm going to turn it forward to Hadiza Hassan.
You're recommending Clutch, and then this is also in your budget, correct?
It is, yes it is.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Hadiza Hassan.
Second.
Second by Kokomo. Question by Buffalo.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you. And I will turn the mic over to Tamara, who has one thing to bring before you this morning.
Before I turn the mic over to Tamara, Madam Secretary has a comment or a question.
Diane, can you remind us where the Dakota Range wind, the 80 turbines will go?
They're up. Those are
Is that way south of Summit?
yes, it's just south of Summit.
Okay.
And we did participate on the surveys. We subcontracted under quality services for that project. And the thing with that project is there was no federal nexus. So they didn't have to consult, but they knew that they were going to cross through our original exterior boundaries. So they came to us well in advance several years back and said that this is what's happening. They knew that we had no say, but they allowed us the opportunity to work and conduct traditional cultural property surveys that ran concurrently with the archaeological survey. So we have a good working relationship, and I just want to say that all these wind projects that are here that are coming up, we have tried to keep them off of our ridge. I mean, just because you guys see how it has changed the landscape. Every time I drive down there, I think, oh my God, my kids and grandkids will never see what we see, and they see things different because of that. You know how it alters the landscape. So it's sad, but they're coming, whether we are with it or not, whether we agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. Those wind turbines are coming. They go on fee land, they go on private land, and so they know how to maneuver through the system. And that's probably why they come to us beforehand to state that if we have any concerns, that they give us that opportunity to review and comment their project. So, I mean, it's not much, but it's some little, at least we have a say over the cultural resources that are identified on their project, and they have worked with us to avoid cairns, stone effigies, things like that. So we have been able to have them practice avoidance in their construction and their projects.
Thank you. So you managed to get them to avoid the cooling?
Yes.
By the housing?
Yes, we have. You know what? On Northern Wind Project, we fought them for several years, and they finally scrapped the Northern Wind Project. It's a difficult fight, though, with our checkerboard situation, and you all must understand the issues that come up with that. We do what we can. I fear for the future that there will be a time that on the fee lands here, I have no doubt that we are going to be full of turbines all along our ridge. But we do what we can. We maintain a good working relationship. one of the head guys at Excel Energy in Minnesota has come here on several visits just to visit with us. Because he is, after we met with him 6-7 years ago, he was so moved about native culture. He said, I never really knew. You know, and people don't know. And I think that that's what really makes a difference, is getting to know people and letting them know who we are and what we're doing and what's important to us. You know, a couple of the guys who worked under him said, we never knew. And one of the guys still keeps in contact with me from the Basic project, which was like 6-7 years ago. And he says, I have a whole new outlook. I'm retired now, but he said, when I'm out in the hills walking, I'm looking. I know I can see things. He said, I feel it. So he's some of the people that we work with, we've really been able to create a relationship and have had lasting impressions on them.
Yes, education is key to educating, to getting them to get to know us. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I'm here before you with a resolution. The Tribal Archives and, of course, the THPO office has been working very closely with the planning director. We came in and we talked about the National Endowment Grant that we are submitting for. We hope to have an answer on that. That will significantly help the tribal archives. So the service that, or the assistance that the planning director is providing myself in seeking funding for these things has been very, very appreciated. This grant is for the development of a tourism program. It would be, and I missed in it the amount. It is $150,000, and it is for a feasibility study, a business plan, a website, and printing of the visitor guide. Within it, we hope to, and I will facilitate this. We will, of course, be needing, external individuals on portions of this, but we hope to combine this with the strategic plan for the visitor center museum, along with the strategic plan for with the NEH grant, should we get that.
Any questions or comments? Chris?
So this is just a feasibility study. That doesn't include your building or anything like that yet? Okay, thank you.
And this is for the tourism, for tourism.
Anything else from leadership? If not, motion to approve. So moved by Madam Vice Chair.
Second.
Second by Legacy.
Question.
Question by Ron.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen, Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Great. There's a question back here.
Just
Mark?
throw this out there. Since we have more money, I know years back when we first started with this whole program or household renovation program, workers on there, or different ones that were all involved.
Can you come to the mic if we can't hear, please? And plus, we got a listening audience out there. Thank you.
Just that we've been trying to get a museum. Since we have a lot of money, the tribe has a lot of money, is it possible maybe that they could look forward to trying and helping us to get something like this together? That was one of our goals way back when Myrna was on the board and different ones that were on the board. Right from the beginning, that was something we wanted. there is land set aside for that, but nothing has ever been done with that. And I guess I would just like to see, something like that for our tribal members. Since they don't have any place even to take their leaders or stuff like that. There's nothing available for our tribal members to do that without licensing. That's just a dream we have in Hana. I would still like to see that we have that museum. Thank you.
Cameron.
After September, with the announcements of the grant, and I remain very hopeful that we will get the NEH grant. And what that will do is the strategic plan for that visitor center and museum. So we're really moving in that direction, and as we go, I would echo her comments that, for administration and leadership to support those efforts in any way that you can.
Thank you, Cameron. I know when I was serving with Jake Thompson and Mike Selvage, we were looking at that, and we're looking at that old building right over here to fix that up. But we're going to call it our Yaba House, our community Yaba House. Can you take the mic?
All right, MC. Going back to the repatriation, the very first one in 1991, it'd be nice to honor some of those that are no longer with us that participated in that. Darlene King was one of them. She was right there. Jay Renville ran that whole thing that time, and what did the annual one that they had not long ago? 2007. So, like him, he ran the whole thing. I was involved because I drove the bus behind the runners, so when I got tired, I jumped on the bus, and then he stood that slip and fell, and she blamed me. And so to this day, she still does. It wasn't my fault, or her fault. It was just an accident. But yeah, that was, and I remember all the coochies that were there, Marie, Marlene, it felt like their kids were coming home.
If there's nothing more, motion to approve the simple report. So moved by Long Hollow. Second by Lake Travers. Question by Madam Vice Chair.
Curtis Bissonette?
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.?
Yes.
Dallas Olin?
Yes.
Louis Johnson?
Yes.
Dion Crawford?
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman?
Yes.
Tribal Secretary?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
We appreciate the simple office and the service that you do for our community. We appreciate it. Moving on to Head Start, early Head Start, then on that we got Enrollment Office, we got our manager on travel, so Vernon's going to present the Enrollment Office report, legal, and then we've got the Vice Chair report. To remind everybody, action items only, because I know 3 of us are going to be going on travel. To help.
Good morning, Council. My name is Angel Marks. Lexi could not make it today, so I will be giving the Head Start report. Need Council approval for the motion to approve the Head Start finance report for July.
Any questions on motion number 1? Actually have her report for the finance report for July. So moved by Takiza Haas, that's the motion number 1. Second by Buffalo Lake. Question by Pokemon.
Curtis Bissonette?
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.?
Yes.
Dallas Olin?
Yes.
Louis Johnson?
Yes.
Dion Crawford? Tribal Vice Chairwoman?
Yes.
Tribal Secretary?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Okay, on the second one would be a motion to approve the attendance report
Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Andy Swim.
Second.
Second by Oleg. Question by Buffalo Lake.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Andy Swim.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford, Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Number 3, the motion to approve the CACF report for July.
Any questions or comments for the CFP report? If not, motion to approve. So moved by Bob Hollow.
Second.
Second by Andy Swim. Question by Buffalo Lake.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford, Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Okay, number 4 would be the motion to approve the policy council report for July.
Asking leadership for any questions or comments. Motion approved by Hafiza Haska. Second, Buffalo Lake.
Question.
Question, Tokunawa.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford, Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Number 5 is the motion to approve engaged learning contract for the 2021-22 school year for $77,500.
Any questions or comments from leadership?
Motion. Second.
So moved by Long Hollow, second by Olazy.
Which motion is this?
Motion number 5. And it's something you can follow along.
Sorry, I was reading the contract. So this went through procurement and legal and all that fun stuff?
Yep.
All right.
She said that legal won't sound off on it until they get a council motion.
So question?
Question by Tokunawa.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford, Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
And then number 6 is the motion to approve Heather Robbins' behavioral contract for the 2021-22 school year for $27,000.
Any questions or comments from leadership?
So moved.
So moved by Madam Vice Chair.
Second.
Second by Long Hollow.
Question.
Question by Olazy.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Same.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Anything else for leadership?
That would be it.
Thank you for bringing up the report for Lexi.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Motion to approve the Head Start, early Head Start report. So moved by Long Hollow,
Second.
second by Andy Swim. Question by Olazy.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
At this time, I'm going to call on enrollment report. This will be given by Berlin. Our program manager is on top.
Good morning, Tribal Council. Start with Exhibit A. Okay, under Exhibit A, we have 12 applicants requesting enrollment
Lynn Eastman. Honesty, Faith Johnson. Phaedra Chastity Joy Lupe. Shioni Asana Parkinson. Hezekiah Jordan Redday. Colibri Rose Redday. Brett Allen Twilling. And Adeline Rose 2 stars.
Is there a motion to accept Exhibit A with 12 applicants?
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Ms.
Second.
Second by Lee Travis.
Question.
Question by Olense.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette.
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Travel Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Travel Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Okay, under Exhibit B, we have a total of 39 applicants requesting enrollment. Athena Jean Abida Bars. Saraf Zen Anderson. Lyrica Rose Ortega. Freya Augusta Azure. Kyler Adonis Bars. Audra Lucille Bernard. Tavaya Ruthie Joe Bird. Jabin Deshane Blacksmith. Desmond Scott Cadat. Chandler Percy Charging Eagle. Sweetia Whitney Charging Eagle. Maya Reyna Demarius. Angel Justice Dumars. Logan Ohitika Fire Steel. Demery Jade Flute. Aurora Capri Fuentes. Gerald Rodriguez Fuentes Jr. Ohepa Chien Garcia. Justin Lane Gill III. Sativa Marie Greeley. Jason Heavenly Dreams Heminger. Leonidas Joaquina Hausman. Brandon Allen Miller Jr. Nakia Gabriel Morgan. Isabella May Nelson. Jordan James Owen. Tyreek DeMarcus Rencounter. Veda Lee Rencounter. Willow Rain Rockwood. Darian Sherry Shepard. Noah Robert Carl Starr. Pearl Louise Sullivan. Kason Julian Thode. Cameron James Thompson. Marley Elizabeth K. Thompson. Clover Georgette Valentine. Sapphire Rain Juana Eberhardt. Kayla James White. And Giselle Jane Williams Russo.
Motion to accept Exhibit B with 39 applicants. So moved by Don Hollow.
Second.
Second by Olense.
Question.
Question by Lake Travis.
Curtis Bissonette.
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson, Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed. Under Exhibit C, I think it's going to be a total of 44. Okay, for Exhibit C, Shane Andrew Armour, Zayton Dugan Bars, Rihanna Rose Berger, Virginia Sapphire Black Thunder, Karen Nicholas Bryant, Tate Topa Obamniwi Dakota, Kazan Alexander Dumars, Trayvon Wade Dumars, Gracelyn Ruth Ellingson Kioke, Isaiah Justice Fisher, Jalen Dianta Fisher, Kinsley Lee Goodteacher, Kinsley Travis Richard. Cameron Lorenz Grant. Kenny Sequoia Grant. Tiamani Martin Graves. Trey Elmer Gunderson. Jayla Lee Hogg. Aaliyah Ann Hisgun. Aaron Bernard Hisgun Jr. Ashton Jade Hisgun. Gabrielle Nicole Hisgun. Kaylee Ann Hisgun. Khalees Amaya Hisgun. Colton James Hisgun. Lance James Hisgun. Lucas James Hisgun Jr. Nova Faye Hisgun. Raylyn Ann Hisgun. Riley Lynn Hisgun. Seth Jonah Hisgun Jr. Ronnie Mariah Jepson. Lamarcus Zachary Keg. Mason John Cole III. Amelita Eva LaCroix. Noali Tati Friggering. Cameron Ray Ledoux Jr. Gwendolyn Faye Martinez. Alexander Robert Montoya. Alicia Dory Ann Grenville. Jamal Devonta Small. Andrew James Smith. Serena Elias Smith. And Michael James Marlin.
Motion accepted, Exhibit C with 44 applicants.
So moved.
So moved by Legacy.
Second.
Second by Amy Quinn.
Question.
Question by non-Hollow.
Floyd Kirk Jr.
Yes.
Dallas Owen.
Yes.
Louis Johnson.
Yes.
Dion Crawford.
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette.
Yes.
Travel Vice Chairwoman.
Yes.
Travel Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed. So for June enrollment, we had 14,457. For July enrollment, we had 95. And for July, we had 12 deceased. So which brings a total for 14,540 travel members. Of those, 6,202 live on reservation, 8,338 live off reservation.
Motion to approve enrollment office, Mr. Chairman.
Non-Hollow made the motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Amy Smith.
Question.
Question by Legacy.
Curtis Bissonette.
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.
Yes.
Dallas Owen.
Yes.
Louis Johnson.
Yes.
Dion Crawford.
Yes.
Travel Vice Chairwoman.
Yes.
Travel Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed. Thank you, everyone.
Council execs, and thank you, Vernon, for bringing up the enrollment office report. And just a heads up, sometimes I have to read your guys' towels before you guys make your motion. Junior Kirk is wearing his face mask, so when he makes his motion, he puckers up his lips, I can't see him. Yeah.
Legal, are you ready?
Legal's right there. We could just,
It's in the.
I know, I see that. Kind of rattles up.
We don't follow that.
Yeah, we don't call it.
Good morning, Tribal Council. Legal Department has 2 action items. I've handed out amendments to the Judicial Code, Chapter 21. These are pursuant to conversations and motion number 98 on March 12, 2021. Greg is available by telephone if needed, but questions, I can get them on the phone. I think we, if you want me to go through the changes and talk about what's being changed, let me know.
Anything from leadership? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the changes to chapter 21 as presented by our in-house attorney, Mayor Thomas.
Motion moved by Travis.
Second.
Second by Lisa. Second, or a question on Madam Secretary. Duly noted by Madam Vice Chair as that she recommended that we have full council here. Question by Madam Vice Chair, or Madam Secretary.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
No.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
No.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
No.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Anything else, Megan?
Yes, additional item, action item, traffic council, I'm used to saying your honor.
Curtis doesn't like that.
Yeah, okay. So we did have a work order submitted to amend the prosecutor, special prosecutor contract with Warren Jackley to include an additional case involving a child as well as extending it for a year. I did reach out to Special Prosecutor Marty Jackley, who wasn't agreeable to those two changes. However, he would need to know right away on that additional case.
Any questions or comments from leadership?
Motion to extend the contract with Marty Jackley as presented by the attorney into, Berlin, do we need to have the chairman, authorize the chairman to execute the contract?
Yes.
That's my motion, thank you.
So moved by Travis.
Second.
Second by Madam Secretary.
Question.
Question by Lindsay.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Anything else, Megan?
No, that's all I have.
Motion to approve the legal office report.
Second.
Question.
Curtis Bissonette,
Yes.
Floyd Kirk Jr.,
Yes.
Dallas Owen,
Yes.
Louis Johnson,
Yes.
Dion Crawford,
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman,
Yes.
Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Thank you, members of council and executives, and welcome aboard, Megan. Appreciate it. At this time, can we take I don't smoke cigarettes, so can we take a 10-minute break? But I drink a lot of water. Next on our agenda will be Madam Vice Chair's report. And from there, we can, we'll come back with Madam Secretary. She has to have a computer purchase from one of her programs.
Let's see.
instead of reading the whole thing, I'm going to go through some of my updates on the things that we've already talked about. So for the fiscal year 2022 budget submission, we're going to be holding our second training on June 28th. The time, location will be provided to the program directors as sent out. Section 7, budget account. So update on that. The required budgets have been submitted to the budget office and entered into workplace. On 7/29/21, payment to Sisseton Housing Authority was made in the amount of $583,338. Planning falls under the authority of the chairman. Matters pertaining to Section 7 of planning should be directed to the chairman. Legal counsel. So we provided a copy of all the legal counsel billing. And that was done on July 7th of 21. And the legal department falls under the authority of the chairman. Matters pertaining to legal should be directed to the chairman. Nothing to update on the cafe. Community post office is the same. Nothing to update there. Our hours of operation, lobby hours are 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Window hours are 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Under the finance office, account 319, CARES 107, and FEMA funds are currently being reviewed with the program, with the DARE coordinator and finance, so they're still reconciling those accounts. On 7/16/2021, SWO received $799,416.49 in FEMA reimbursement. Total FEMA reimbursement as of 7/31/2021 is $1,183,845. District emergency response payments were distributed Monday, August 2nd. Staffing levels. The position of CFO has been declared vacant and is currently being advertised until filled in Oyate News, Nafoya, Assistant Courier, Aberdeen, Sioux Falls, and Minneapolis areas. The finance office has taken on additional workload due to the processing of ARC assistant payments. Additional bookkeepers are being advertised that have not yet been filled. DARE workers are covering where able, but finance will need to hire additional staff. Human resources, screening and interviews for the HR director position is pending executive committee scheduling a time to review applications and interviews. Property management report has been submitted and was provided under the chairman's report. Procurement, contract concerns, those are some personnel matters that required the chairman and I to meet on. We did meet. Once we were able to sit down and meet on that, I did approve the purchase of the storage containers to be paid by check as opposed to the workplace process. Procurement policy, the addendum to Sean's contract. Sean and Kate's contract is under legal review. My office has a meeting scheduled for Thursday, August 5th with our new in-house legal counsel to reconcile and prioritize pending legal orders, and this is one of them. Yes?
While we were on the topic of procurement, I was curious for the request for proposals for the new financial software, for the programs for the SWO finance offices, and for the advertisement to follow the procurement process with the finance budget as the funding source. And these funds will be reimbursed with the American Rescue Plan Act. Funding when available. Motion 14, May 12th. Just curious where we're at on that.
So that, I'm going to wait until we do have a CFO, because that's really the duty of the CFO is to carry all that duty out. And once I get that position filled up, that'll be one of their assignments.
So I appreciate that answer, but in retrospect, when that was first presented, it was an emergency at the time. I do believe Greg at the time too went on leave, and so when we passed it initially before it was rescinded, and then the motion was passed like second time with the different specs as I presented there. So what was the major difference in rush? I mean, to me, and it just felt like initially it was being pushed through like as if the sky was falling, but now it's just kind of casual, and just would like some elaboration with that.
So why I was pressing to get it then as opposed to now?
Yes.
Because I run out of time. So at the time, it was more efficient for me to move for it, because by now we would have been in motion and training and all of that. So when the IT building and project is done, we were pretty much all going to be done at the same time. But now it's out of order, and now it's not urgent. If that was my goal at that time, and I did ask for a sole source, legal did do me that sole source letter, but you guys rescinded it anyway. And so it's not as urgent as it was at that time, if that makes sense. It would have lined up better if I had been able to move at that time period. So now I'm going to be behind anyway, so it don't matter. We're already moving and processing everything in workplace for the ARP funding, so again, we're just in motion. So it just makes sense to have the CFO pursue at that level of a project, because that's their primary function to do so.
Appreciate your response, and so I just want to reiterate, it's just going to be on hold for now.
Yes, until I can get this, it'll be accomplished. It's just the CFO should really handle that project.
Thank you.
Point in order, Dion, then Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, my understanding of the way the tribe works is that anything to do with software, hardware, computers, printers, anything is solicited by IT. IT is responsible for completing those RFPs. So why would we have a CFO do an RFP for software, first of all? Second of all, what was the purpose for a sole source? I mean, and why would you be initiating that sole source? Because like I said, this is supposed to be under IT, because it's, and maybe Dawn can come in, and I know she was here yesterday, but maybe she can come in and kind of elaborate a little bit more, because this just doesn't seem, it doesn't seem to fit what we have in our policies, procedures. You know, like in Ms. Whitaker said, the urgency, there was an urgency to get an interim, CFO. And when we found out that Red W was on contract to do our audits, making an interim CFO from Red W unethical, then all of a sudden that was dropped. So I'm just wondering, why the sole sourcing, why the urgency, and then no urgency, because yesterday, when there was questions about, reports and things, you told us that the current software that we have is not capable of running reports. And so it doesn't, these things aren't matching up. So that's the purpose of my questions.
So, going back to the RFP, and when I first introduced the software, I roundtabled with you guys, I explained everything to you. The urgency at the time, like I said, I had just had my CFO go on extended leave. We have all this money coming in, there's audits coming, there's a whole thing of justification as to why I wanted to repurpose REDW and have them come in and provide us that technical assistance. They would have been able to do that for us, but that would have meant we would have to RFP for an auditor, which at that time we had time to do. So the most efficient way to handle all of these changes at that time was to do that. But because that didn't happen, now I don't have time to RFP for an audit, so using them for that technical assistance isn't as efficient now as it was at that time. The sole source, for the software. Like I said, had we been able to move at that time, we would have been in step and in line with this IT renovations, and by the time both got done, we'd be able to roll it out together, which would have been most efficient. But because that didn't happen, and I had lost the CFO position, or he was on leave, he's the one that's most appropriate to handle that because he had been looking into that before he left. He's been working on it for the past couple of years, and I know that because when I sat on council, he demoed that software along with IT and all of finance staff. So it's been a project that was on his plate for a couple of years now, and I was just trying to come in and fulfill those obligations in his absence, knowing and taking into consideration everything with the IT project, all of that. So I did sit down with legal before Greg left. We talked about REDW, and he put together some proposals. Like I said, him and I were meeting with my finance team. We're assessing what needs that we needed, he needed. I did share some of that with you guys, and you did tell me you weren't going to support it. So then I didn't bring it before council for council motion, because if you're not going to support it, I'm not going to waste your time. So all of this has been discussed in roundtable discussions at length. So no, I wasn't trying to move unethically. I've explained this already. At that time, it was most appropriate. Now, it's not. Thank you.
Curtis.
Thank you for that. So with that being said, is our software now capable of handling what you were pushing for?
No.
Okay,
And
so
you're gonna,
how?
and you see that because we can't produce the reports. We still have to enter everything manually. We've explained that. I've explained this current system. My staff has come before you and explained this current system and the areas that they are struggling with in producing the type of reports, level reports that you guys are requesting of me right now, of this office. So that's why it takes time for me to get these numbers together for my report. If you look at gaming, they get a 15-day grace period to calculate all of their financials for the previous month. I get a day and a half, if that. So it does take time for us to do that. And my staff, they're here on the weekend and they're here late trying to compile these numbers for me. So Greg's talked, Chris talked in roundtable and before council on the benefits of this new system. So it's still on the table in NISWA, and like I said, it'd be most appropriate to be managed by the CFO, as that's his duty, and he's going to understand the need a lot greater than I would. So it's there. As soon as I get that position fulfilled, that's going to be one of the priorities.
I stay on the floor, right?
Yes.
So I'm curious to see what other reports in depth that we needed from you. Because last I checked, all we needed was the SHOTA one and the payments. And that was last month at the council meeting, at the beginning of the month.
But you guys also want to know all of the accounts. You want to know a balance of all the accounts. So that's what we have. That's the report that we have to get from all the bookkeepers and everything, and then all that has to be complied. So that's the most tedious one.
So with that being said, like, I don't ever remember, we just wanted to see where we were at. So how was that?
That was
another
one of
task,
the
I
that
guess?
was one of the reports you gave me 2 weeks to do, otherwise you'd start my removal. So I made that a part of my report, and it's in my actual. It's not an attachment.
Who asked for you?
You guys did when we had that.
Who's you guys? Because those words never came out at
Okay,
all.
so when
Don't put my
Okay.
words,
Okay, so.
any words like that.
Okay.
I've never said anything like that.
So when I'm sitting in a council, in a roundtable with you guys, and I'm being told that nobody else is telling me any different, and then 2 days later I'm called back in saying, we hope that you're taking that serious. I've taken it serious, and I did. And so off of that, I have adjusted my report to reflect what was asked of me. So if you look on page 5, there's a whole section dedicated to financial reports where you're going to find the breakdown of all these different accounts that was asked. You want to know balance. So this is the stuff that I'm putting in there. If you don't want that, I can take it out. I mean, you got to be consistent in what you're asking of me. I'm trying to give you what you're asking.
And that's what I'm asking you to explain that, because I don't recall that. All we're asking for is where
You
we're
make
at.
sure your mic is on.
Oh, sorry. All we asked for is where we're at, because we were getting that on the COVID stuff. That was the main thing. Because we were making motions for expenditures, which we didn't know where we were at. That's all I remember. And then last month I remember just the show that. So I don't understand. That's why I'm asking you, what were we asking for that you got that we needed?
For all of the accounts, a copy of a balance of all the accounts. And I have always, every month, and I demonstrated that I've always produced COVID reports, the CARES funding reports. Each month I've done that. The first month in January, we sat down with a round table and I produced those. And I have that record, and it's in my monthly report, so it's not accurate when you're saying that I haven't given you that information. I've given it to you every month.
I'm not saying that. I'm asking you to provide what was so necessary. And this was yesterday. Why was it necessary for you to ask for an extension the third month in a row to get your report done? That's all I asked.
And I just explained it is because when you're asking for balance of all the accounts, I'm giving it to you, but it takes time to compile that information.
Members of the council, vice chair, we're going to go at this. We're going to be going at this and just move on.
Thank you, Chairman.
No,
I think
I want to address something though. I mean, because you keep throwing everybody in this category of wanting to remove you. I want you to specifically tell me who said this to you. So,
Me too.
Well, okay, so we all sat in the meeting and we know that Lake Traverse rep made that statement to me. We've gone through it. We've had this discussion. Yes. And so, as a result of that, that is why I've been producing these reports. You've asked for an open council. So I've been asked to this in roundtable, executive session, and open council. And that's why I'm producing what reports that you're asking.
What Junior is asking is, can you tell us who said that?
I just did.
All of us?
I just said Lake Traverse rep is the one who gave me that 2-week ultimatum. Otherwise, they were going to start my removal. And that came off of Buffalo Lake's request for certain reports with 2-week. So
how does that put me in that category?
because when I'm sitting in there, nobody's attesting that. And 2 days later, I'm getting called back in there hoping that, and being told, I hope you're taking us serious. We want these reports, then I'm taking, and nobody else is saying anything. I'm leaving with the impression that this is the consensus of council, and I will do it as council's asked. And I have. So that is the reason why, for this. And I'm going to move on.
No.
If that's okay, Chairman.
I actually have
Dallas.
So, appreciate it. And then, appreciate the information you gave me, Lisa. But, going back to that motion 14 on May 12th, I believe all the financial department kind of knows what they need already. And so wait for the CFO to continue with this procurement policy. I mean, I'm just trying to help you here. You know, wouldn't it just go a little bit easier though if you let IT go ahead and do the RFP in coordination with the procurement office, and then when it comes down to it, just sit with interim and maybe Chris and some other individuals that sit in the accounts payable or something. you can round table it that there. It's like, okay guys, these are the systems that came in for the RFP. Which ones would you guys be comfortable with? Because they're going to be working with this every day. I mean, that's kind of where I was going with that thought process on whether or not this was implemented.
And I appreciate that, Dennis, I really do. But there's a little bit more to that, because when I had sat down with Greg when he was with us, he wanted a certain type of software. IT wants a different type of software. They've been having this struggle on who's going to determine the type of software. The county knows the type of software that they want. They've expressed that to me. So it would make most sense for the CFO to be able to come and evaluate the type of software that he'd like to be with his accounting staff. So there's a difference on the type of RFP that needs to go out, because there's a different type of software. And as CFOs, we don't know exactly what that is going to look like a lot better than I. And the staff has, the finance staff has explained that this MIP software is the software that best fits for them for fund accounting. This other software that's being recommended by IT is not.
In short, I guess want the RFP and the procurement process to be followed, and for this to just move along, because, you know, May 12th, we're in August. The months eventually drag on.
Yeah, and I didn't anticipate to lose the CFO. I didn't anticipate all of that. I really thought that I would have the support of council, because the plan that I had was most efficient for my finance team, and I didn't get that support. It made the most sense.
Hence why it was rescinded, because we have these policies to protect the tribe.
Yep.
And so with the procurement, it's to protect the tribe and its assets. And that's where, if the RFP just were to go out in the finance office, to me it seems pretty clear cut and dry on how this could work. But I appreciate your response, and then for the sake of the chairman's agenda, I'll yield.
Shota. Okay, Sharon.
Excuse me, Deanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we want to get done. So we addressed this in like April or May. Council, you were all there. Mr. Chairman, you were there. Madam Secretary, you were there. Did I ever say to her in that meeting that I was going for removal? Please say yes or no.
No.
Thank you. Stop lying, Madam Vice Chair. The discussion that came about removal came out of the Buffalo Lake District. And he even sat there and said to you, I don't want to do that, but they want to know how much CARES Act funding we have. It took you until April to get us the report on the CARES Act funding. I understand you're new, I get it, but don't sit there and be dishonest. All of these reports, they're printed. They're printed off of what the software we currently have. The reason why we didn't do it your way was because you weren't being honest with us. You took to the newspaper and called for all of us to be removed. Every single one of us. So I don't want to hear any more lies about me asking for your removal. That is a lie, and I'm sorry. I mean, if you want to keep saying it, go ahead, but it's not true. And I don't appreciate it. You know, it's pretty alarming to me that the person that is overseeing the finances and the money of this tribe continues to lie. I don't know if that scares anybody else, but it scares the living shit out of me. And it's got to stop. And excuse my language, but my goodness. I read some of the things in your report that are inaccurate. There was inaccurate reporting to General Counsel. I mean, what are you doing? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I have not lied on any of that. I'm not going to sit here and keep going in this manner. Since I've gotten here, I've gotten treated and attacked by this council. And I have been thrown in executive sessions, and you've articulated your disdain for me very well, Dion, as well as Long Hollow. I mean, all of you have taken pretty much your turn to tell me what it is you don't like about me. A lot of it is personal. And it's done in executive session where I'm not able to defend myself. I'm not able to do that. I've had this discussion with the chairman. And he said that he was going to help work on this. And I thought we were past that. And every time I come to give my report, I get attacked. I'm trying to put together a report and give you the information that you requested me as the vice chair. And you can see my reports evolving by trying to accommodate that. But I'm not lying. I'm not a liar. And every little thing gets turned on me to try to make me look incompetent. So all of this, you've never reported. I can show I reported. Your districts called me, invited me in because you were saying that I have not reported CARES funding when I was able to come and show my monthly reports that each month I did report this stuff. And our community, our members aren't going to know that. They're going to go off of what you go back and tell them. And if you're not producing the reports and handing them, then there's no way for them to know that what you're saying is not accurate. So I'm going to move on, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Chuck Floral has overseen the SWO Shelton newspaper since the 1970s. He has not increased his rates since he was hired. Annually, Mr. Floral would receive a budget from the tribe. Copies of these budgets can be are available upon request. RFP for Shelton has been drafted by the vice chair and is currently pending executive committee review. Mr. Floral owns the Shelton website, is requesting to negotiate the SWO with SWO on its purchase. Update, Mr. Floral did submit a letter and records to the tribe. You can see attachment 6. We are currently in the process of getting all of the past Shelton articles electronically to Tamara St. John. So prior to 2001, Chuck had already submitted from the beginning to that date a historical record to Tamara. So if you refer to attachment 6, you're going to see his letter and the information that council has requested on his account. Tribal court. So the BIA assessment, we all know the last BIA assessment was in 2014. In March, I requested an assessment. They received that assessment and they placed us on a list for our assessment to take place after October 21. For the hiring process, Judge Snyder reviewed Chapter 21. That doesn't matter anymore because that has been revised. Or has been, there's been a change in 21. The chief judge position on the 19th, judicial did meet with myself, the chief judge. We did review applicants. We had 4. Of the 4, 1 didn't meet minimum qualifications, 1 declined, and 1 didn't respond to the request for interview. 1 person, the remaining applicant was interviewed. Judicial committees requested to meet with council to provide their recommendation. Not sure how that's going to work. Is there any direction you guys would like to give me as far as the chief judge position and judicial recommendation?
Any questions or comments from leadership?
Being that we don't have a judicial committee anymore, how would you want me to proceed with them?
Dallas from NBC on the floor, George.
So, judicial committee basically just got faces left, and it's still there. Individuals we said yesterday still take part in this process. And Chapter 21 itself was just revised. There wasn't any dissolution of the judicial committee as I see it. But regarding from the judge standpoint, I would like to just see all the applicants that put in and just decide from there. That's me personally.
Okay, and then when do you want to do this? Should I get with Christine, do round
They can't extend.
Okay, I can do that. Thank you. The associate judge on the 19th, we also reviewed the job qualifications, and they're also revised. It currently requires an individual to be law licensed and in good standing with the bar, with any bar association in the state, or any state, I should say. However, being that the chief judge position holds that requirement, they decided to change the requirement to be that the associate judge be a law-trained individual. That job description was revised, and we're currently advertising it to fill. Tribal prosecutor, Karen Bingle's contract was extended for another 30 days, expiring August 31st. Tribal council interviewed and selected Benjamin Pachito. HR has completed his background, and he's able to begin on August 31st. I think we're pending the contract review, right? Legal review. So the public defender, HR, is still waiting to hear back from the applicant that was interviewed. Tribal court staffing. Tribal court staffing is a critical at critical levels. Interim Associate Judge Elmer Ward's last day is going to be August 10th. The workload is heavy. Traffic is up by over 100%. That's the judge's estimate, based on the ARP funds and guardianship requirements. Clerks are overworked, and he is expecting resignation if there's no end in sight. So we do need to get these judge positions filled and get them some additional staff. I know since then they did reach out to a previous employee who had been there for a significant amount of time, and she is in there working temporary to help them through this period where they're being hit with additional workload. July 26th was jury selection. I'm going to move on to Department of Corrections, the grant. I know the judge said he was going to get me more information on that, so you can see now he was awarded $50,000, and this grant is to continue tribal court outreach, prevention, probation programs with respect to juvenile offenders in coordination with the state when our juvenile members are charged in state court. Program narrative, he's deferring that to the new chief judge to put together a narrative. I'll let you read that because he does have some of his personal, or not personal I would say, but some of his original intent as to what he was hired for. And he is agreeing to continue to hear sensitive cases on a case-by-case basis, and only agreed to be interim chief judge for a temporary amount of time, and he's just reiterating that fact. Drug court, Judge Stylers continue to pursue drug court options. He's had no contact from Marty Tetra treatment program. He plans to meet with Megan to take the lead of this project after she settles in. As her first day was Monday, July 26th, and I'll be assigning Greta to this project.
Question with,
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So that's an inaccurate statement.
Okay. Which one is, what's in that?
Saying that Mayu Tetra hasn't had contact with.
Well, I'm just going on.
So I'm still talking. There was MOA, draft MOA completed. There's an email chain. There was a conference call. Mayu Tetra we started, when I was working at Mayu Tetra, we started trying to save the drug court when Judge Ruggieri was first seated. We did everything we possibly could because drug court services they're alternative sentencing. They deal with treatment. In lots of other places, they're called treatment. So it's appropriate that those services that Mayu Tetra, Dakota Pride, one of our behavioral health counseling substance use programs oversee those services. If the court was going to do it, they would have done it. There was a grant. I emailed, the first day we were in office, or the first day we had council, I emailed You know, I talked about it at length in open session. I made a motion directing Manu Techa and the court to get that grant written. It was too late at that point. But this really, the service on this, I know because I was there, because I assisted with it, that the manager, Manu Techa, Skyman Rende, he has everything ready. He's got, cause I know because I've seen it everywhere. So I mean, you know, I know Madam Secretary has been absent and that's her program, but it would be more appropriate for Skyman to oversee that, especially me asking for reports all the time stresses out our staff. So I think it would be better. That's just my recommendation to you as executives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I believe what the judge is talking about here is from the last report, he said after last tribal council, he was going to begin having a series of meetings on this. And that's where he's talking about from that time frame to now. And this is coming from him. He emailed me an update where we are in all these areas. So I don't think he's saying they've never. He's just saying from last council where he said he was going to begin meeting with everybody. This is just an update from that, and that he's the one who recommended it be Megan. He kind of sat down with me in my office and recommended her. He spoke very highly of her and thought she'd be good for that. But if I mean, it could be whoever.
Madam
We could
Secretary.
talk about that later.
Yeah, I think we just need to talk about it further because Leah is over all of the treatment, programs. And I was in conversation with Simon when they first initiated the drug court idea, taking under Manu Techa.
Yeah, so I don't think the judge is referring to that. He's never, just from, like I said, from his last report, monthly update to us to now.
Yeah.
That he's tried to have a series of meetings and we know the scheduling, or even us, it's hard for us to meet with everything that's going on. So it's not meant to be I don't think he meant in a negative way. He's just updating us because he knows it's important.
But, there's staff under that could be assigned. You assigned Greta already?
Well, for my office to be part of that, whatever that task force is going to look like, it falls under, tribal court falls under my office.
Roundtable this.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to take action, I'm just updating.
Okay.
And I'm noting, if you're not going with the judge's recommendation for Megan to take.
Oh, I didn't say it wasn't,
Okay.
but I think we need to just talk about it. Megan's very good.
Yeah. And I'm just going, this is the judge's recommendation, this is his part that he sent me.
Based on no communication though, and he probably doesn't see this, he kind of moved before.
Probably not. He may not. But I don't think he's saying that they haven't made contact with him.
Can you pass that?
Okay. I think what he was saying is from the last report that I gave to now. If you look back, he said that he's going to begin to start a series of meetings. And that just sounds like it hasn't happened.
Can you change that?
So I'm in the tax office, the update there, we'll be meeting on August 18th with the state and legal. We're still in negotiation with the tax agreement, and a request for an extension was granted with the deadline of October 31st. Fueling propane, back taxes, that was resolved. There is a payment plan in place. Importer-exporter tax is another one of those issues that's been going on for several years, and we've yet to resolve that. If I'm understanding, and correct me, counsel, because we all work together at the meeting, and I think Enemy Swim and I feel comfortable that we feel the same way we want to get this resolved. So, to my understanding, what we need to clarify is a start date of the 100% importer-exporter taxes, because there's a conflict between motions. One says it starts in July, and then the previous one states a different time, so I know our tax director brought that to our attention. And then also the importer-exporter, the tax director is asking that those checks go directly to the tax office to ensure that we are, as a tribe, are keeping an accurate account of that tax revenue. And then once that's recorded, then it'll be sent back to fueling. And those, to my understanding, were the key points. So council motions required to clear is, tax is asking for council motion to clarify this matter. So I don't know if we're going to do another roundtable to do that, but it's being noted. Monthly tax report, I did ask Brenda to get prepared, because in September I'm going to ask that she be put on our council agenda so that way she can just update herself on council. And that she's available to you guys for any questions. For profits, Madam Secretary mentioned this in her report that she's going to be scheduling that meeting with Lou regarding the elderly funds. Dakota Western reported to council directly on July 15th. It's a typo, I apologize. DNGE, they had their Gaming Advisory Board meeting on, July 15th. They gave their monthly report to council directly on July 28th, same as fueling. Our special projects, you can refer to attachment 2 and 3, and that's going to give you an update of what we have remaining in our CARES fund account. The ARP plan, the American Rescue Plan Act, applications for emergency relief assistance to all enrolled drafting members has been completed, and distribution is in process. On page 5 is where you're going to find the financial reports. Motion needed, Mr. Chairman. I do need a motion to authorize the purchase of 6 laptops for the finance department with ARP funds as the funding source. They do have quotes. It did go through the procurement process. I'm not sure, did you say the one for money? For the laptops, did you want to present that? The request for laptops?
Madam Secretary, well,
Can I just ask a quick question that's just related to the end of the report? Remember that spreadsheet that Ramona did initially, Vice Chair?
Which one?
It was the big spreadsheet
Okay,
that
yes,
Lexi used to do, identifies all the federal, state, and tax, SG, all of that. Under the federal awards, it says it's a work in progress, and also program income is a work in progress. Will we be getting those reports as soon as they're completed? And when will that be?
That's a good question. You want to answer?
Well, right now, everything was concentrated on the gaming,
on the gaming
distribution.
You want to go to the mic, please?
you got to press the right button. There you go.
Green, okay. Right now, the concentration was on reporting the gaming, all the gaming accounts, because there's several gaming accounts there, and the indirect cost. And it took a while, like Lisa said, it took a while to gather all that information and compile it into a single page report. And we're very aware of those other categories, and those are still work in progress, because we just now wrapped up that initial request for information. But yeah, eventually I'd like to see that presented too. I'm not sure when, because I'm going to say it again, it takes a while to compile all that information. But we're geared up and ready for it.
Are you going to utilize that same form that Lexi used, that long spreadsheet? Because that was a good one.
That's the long sheet, yeah. We're gonna expand on that, because right now, all the federal awards is just lumped into one column. We'd like to have that expanded out to some more. So, yeah, we're looking at our movements.
Okay, do we have a timeline?
I was hoping for this next cycle, this 2022 cycle.
Okay, and have all the updated 2022.
That's the plan, but I don't know how well we can move on that, or how fast. Right now, we're kind of bogged down with modifications, doing budget ones.
So Madam Secretary, I think what you're talking about is our matrix, and that captures that's our budget process. So that's gonna capture everything that we're budgeting for the year. And then these reports here are your expense reports for the month. So there's a difference.
Yeah.
And the
we use
reason-
matrix every month.
I've heard that, but I don't remember seeing that even when I sat on council. But then I wasn't an executive either, so. And I can arrange for that, and we can talk about that maybe in exec session. Okay. Or executive committee meeting, I should say. And the reason why program income and these federal awards are in process is there's just a lot that they compile, like she said. So Chris, did you want to talk about the laptops that you're requesting and why? Thank you.
Well, the laptops we used, or they used for the last winter, when we were on shutdown, they weren't ours, they were used laptops. And we were requesting laptops of our own in case, for emergencies and stuff like that. Or in case someone needs to be home and working and stuff.
When did you give it out this and you got your recommendation?
We went to IT, and IT sent us the proposal. But they are, so the laptop that was assigned to me is no longer active, I guess. You can't even log into the network here. So we're updating mine, is the 6th one, and the 5th ones are for the other ladies in the office who used the ones that were used from the Tribal Youth Department. And there are 4 working at home and other instances we may need to use them. I don't know, whatever one you guys want.
No, whatever one you recommend.
I don't know, the cheapest one, I guess. Because I think they're all pretty much the same. That's the one for the most price. That would be the Windsor.
Second by latency, question by Lake Travis.
And for the record, can I state in the amount of $9,143.76? Thank you, Chairman.
Can I get a copy of that from somebody? Curtis Bissonette?
Yes.
Blake Kirk Jr.?
Yes.
Dallas Owen?
Yes.
Louis Johnson? Dion Crawford?
Yes.
Tribal Vice Chairwoman?
Yes.
Tribal Secretary?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passed.
Okay, so council motion action items, the motions are listed with an update to where we are with each one of those motions that have gone to and been approved by council. If I'm missing anything, this is another revision to my report, which I'll be doing monthly council. I'll be reviewing our draft motions and I'll be making sure to note them in my report. And it's just going to help me better keep track of the motions that I'm responsible for and providing an update to them. And then my attachments, attachment 1 is the gaming proceeds checkbook register. Attachment number 2 is the CARES Act summary report. Attachment number 3 is the CARES Act fund account 107 all report. Attachment number 4 is section 7 monthly notice of submission. Attachment number 5 is the buoy report, and attachment number 6 is Chuck Floral's report, and then also the records that council requested.
Madam Vice Chair, I've been getting phone calls. Maybe you could think about it with community post office hours, since we're giving out checks for our travel members, and some of them can't make it to pick up their checks. And some of them, they always like to check their mail, so maybe you get open those hours up, maybe the weekend hours or adjust them. I was just getting phone calls from some of the elders that kind of leery to come out here with big crowds.
Sure.
Thank you.
So you're requesting weekend hours?
Yeah, if it can be worked out, just for those ones that are, leery of coming in, and especially with a lot of people that we're having that come through the doors now.
Sure. I think we were until the COVID, but I will agree with that. Thank you, Trevor.
I appreciate it. I wanted to bring it up before I forget. Curtis, do you have any?
I do. So we got the report from Chuck Boyle. What about our equipment that he has?
He owns the equipment. He owns the equipment. He also owns the webpage. He was requesting negotiation for purchase of that webpage.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, in the contract from 2012, the last contract that was signed, it said that the tribe owned everything. I mean, that's what it said. So, my question is, how did we get to this point? The next thing I would like to say is that this situation that was created by us doing a motion to do an RFP because there was no current contract is exactly why we need a contract. This is exactly why not only do our policies, procedures, accounting manual, everything say that we need to have a current contract, but this is exactly why. Because now we're in a situation, and I'm not blaming anybody in the past, it just, whatever. But I do want to say that I have, we talked about, we've created policies and procedures, and, it's especially targeted to planning, because all of these steps had to be done before the housing payment, could get done. That's a monthly payment that was a motion resolution by this council, by this body. And they have to do all these things, triplicate, and then to get bills paid for our contractors, it's triplicate, this, that, contracts got to be attached. I mean, Matthew was just running and jumping through hoop after hoop. But Chuck Furrow comes in with a bill and we just pay it. This isn't just $10. These are large amounts. This is a large amount. And so I just wonder, and you don't have to answer this, but I just wonder, why is it that Chuck Furrow is able to come in here, bring a bill, have it just get paid, but when we're paying bills that are done correctly, properly, directed by this body, no, can't do it that way. No, and it's months. The housing waited for months to get their payments. Lots of payment that they received before, just the other day, I believe, it was months, it was 7 months. I guess that's maybe more of a statement, but that's all I'll say.
So, Mr. Chairman, to that, there are processes that we have to do within our financial system, and it's my place to make sure that those processes are followed. One of the things, the main reason with the payment to the housing is that budget had to go into the workplace, and there's $1,800,000 and some dollars. I don't know all of it off the top of my head, but out of that $1,800,000, $1 million goes to the housing. So that meant that planning was going to have to readjust their budget by $1 million. And there's no way that my office or anybody else should be doing that. That's the responsibility of that program manager to deduct from his budget to cover that cost. So that was the main thing that needed to happen. Then we needed to make sure that he had access to the other accounts, which we worked all that out. This has been an issue for when I was on council. And so I feel satisfied and I feel good that we finally got to a resolve, because this is going into year 3 of this being an issue, and now it's resolved. Regarding Chuck coming in and getting payment, Chuck was not getting payment. Chuck was managing the SHOTA for us. So when he's getting payment on behalf of the tribe for the SHOTA. It's not like he's coming in and he's getting paid. So that's not accurate depiction of what's going on here. If you look at his report, you're going to see that he's got outstanding bills in the amount of $71,000 that he was trying to collect on behalf of the tribe. That was his job. He was managing our paper. Chuck has been doing this since 1970s. He delivers all the papers. He's not raised his rates since then. I don't know if we're going to find anybody to do this at those rates. I mean, he's dedicated a lot of years here. And so I want to clarify that. It's not that he was coming in and getting paid. He was collecting payment on behalf of the tribe.
But he's a hostile to the one.
This body never terminated him, and that's what he says in there too. This body never terminated anybody. Those words never came out of our mouth. So I just want to correct that too.
Liz, I didn't put that in my request.